It changed that button on me from leave webinar and accept to leave webinar. It was leave webinar and got it. It's now leave webinar and accept. So you're lucky I didn't get kicked off the webinar when that happened. Anyway, welcome everyone on social media and also on the bridge here today. Derek, you ready to kick this in the tail and get going?
You bet. So
I'm going to hit record. Let me hit record quick and then
go for
say what you're going to say. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
If you're new to if you're new to the Johnson brothers, on this day in 1965, our parents met. So February 14th, otherwise known as Valentine's Day here at least in the States. I'm assuming it's celebrated globally, but what do I know? I'm a numbers guy. Our parents met at the local bowling alley in northern Wisconsin, little small town, 2,000 people, Chautauqua, Wisconsin. And not 2 years, not 2 months, but 2 weeks later, they were married. And they would have been married how long before Dad passed away in 99? About 33.895 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah, right in there. A little more than that, I think, actually. So almost 35, something like that. Anyway, today is Aurora's birthday celebration. So thank you for all of you that are here. Happy Valentine's Day, Derek. Everybody online, I wore my Wisconsin Love shirt in honor of Valentine's Day today. So you got big plans with Allie, your sweetheart?
Nope. Does that make me sound like a bad husband? I mean, we're chasing 4 kids all over the place all the time. So we went out last weekend. It was also her birthday yesterday, so I get double whammied every year. February 13th birthday, February 14th Valentine's Day. So
happy birthday, Allie.
By the time I get past the birthday, it is. I have to admit, I'm kind of ready for the Hallmark holidays to be over.
Well, the other major event on the calendar happening today is it's Ash Wednesday, and you know what that means for me. A few times over the last few years. Can you guess what I'm going to be doing here during Lent?
You aren't giving up beer again for Lent, are you?
I'm giving up alcohol entirely for Lent. So it's between now and Easter Sunday. I do not take the every Sunday is an Easter break either. So no boozing for Eric until whenever late March, I think. It's at least 6 weeks anyway. Well, so I can drink again.
That's unfortunate for you, but I'll have 1 or 2 here and there for you.
I was going to say, Terry Thiel's in our audience. Terry, you're your chief beer drinker. You get my share here for the next 6 weeks or so anyway. I know you like to have a beer with lunch. Well, we've got a nice crew online on the bridge. For those of you over on social, if you're on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, go visit reconverge.io and you can get signed up to jump on here. That, by the way, is sort of my first big news item for 2024 and to celebrate year 30. I think you can start celebrating your 30th year as soon as the 29th year is behind you. Isn't that right? So February 3rd, 2024 was the beginning of Aurora's 30th year, the beginning of my 55th year, by the way. I started the company on my 25th birthday way back in the day, and here we are kicking along well into our 50s, or at least you're about to enter your 50s, Derek. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I haven't got my AARP card just yet, but I understand they start sending that to you when you turn 50. And yeah, I am 90 days from tomorrow away from 50.
Well, happy early birthday. I know we've got kind of a big objective in mind for getting done by that May 15th birthday of yours. How's that make you feel when we've only got 90 days to go before that project is done? And share with our great audience what that project is.
Well, we'll talk more about it, as we get into this podcast. But yeah, Eric's referring to the book project that we've been working on now for better part of 2 years. We started, as my memory serves, Eric, in about May of 22. We committed to doing this, and we do have a fully edited, I think a well-structured 10-chapter manuscript at this point. Still needs to go through some beta reader evolutions. It needs to get a copy editor. We need some book art. We need a subtitle. We need a complete process around the audiobook, but we're getting there. The last mile is always the hardest.
Right on. Yep. Well, it's been a joy to work on. And I will say that the draft manuscript edit was the longest grind of any project I've probably ever had in my career to date. I did not think I was capable of that work until it happened. And when it was done 2 weeks ago, I was a little aimless for about 10 days after that. That aimlessness was like, gee, I'm not editing a manuscript that was drafted, finished back the prior May. It took us about a year to write the manuscript, by the way, for those of you wondering how much work it takes to write a book or to co-write a book. Even with a whole team of people working on this thing, outlining began about May of 22. I believe our draft was done in May of 23. And then we got distracted with a bunch of family stuff that we had to attend to over the summer and finally got back to it in the fall. But we're going on about a 2-year timeline. That's probably what it's going to end up being by the time it's all said and done. And we won't quit. We shall persist until we succeed, as Og Mandino used to say, and the greatest salesman in the world. So the book, The Missionary and the Mercenary, we hope will be available in some way, shape, or form for all of you by Derek's birthday, May 15th. So don't forget to send him a birthday card, and you might get a free copy. Who knows? If you've taken the time to tune in today, we should actually, Derek, at least look at the attendance list and distribute some vouchers or something to let the people who are in our audience today tune in for free, celebrating our 29 years.
Right on. I'm happy to provide every one of our great 14 or 15 attendees here today with a free, not just free copy, signed copy. Let's make
signed copy. Amen.
Yeah. So some of you on the line today were there when I threw my big brother an actual rock concert. It was almost as if I was planning a small wedding because I had a cake and I had a band and I had a bus, and it took us to an offsite deal in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which is still just a really fun memory. I told Eric about 90 days ago, I don't need a rock concert for my 50th birthday. What I really need is for this book to be done. So I think that was just the little bit of a kick in the backside you might have needed to say, I can set aside almost everything else, do this intense editing, rewriting in many cases, part of the process. And I love you for it, because I think we do have the makings of a book here that will hopefully change the way the readers of the book think about not just their business and professional ambitions, but also their life overall.
Right. Yep. I agree. Well, I think having a deadlines allow work to be organized and batched into smaller chunks. And so 10 chapters and a preface took 13 weeks, if you're wondering. And it's probably pushing 350 pages when it's all said and done. So while I would say that first edit of the draft was mainly perfecting stuff that already existed, I'll say it was about 50% addition and 50% subtraction. Well, say 30% addition, 20% subtraction, actually is more like it. And then 50% kind of perfection. There's a lot missing. There was a lot that were in the wrong places that needed to be moved around. But it's a pretty tight beta manuscript, I'm told. I've spoken with 5 or 6 of our beta readers in the last couple of weeks since finishing chapter 10. And I will say that they've all brought up that this has had some significant impact on how they think about the world, and not just from an intelligence doctrine standpoint. That's actually the best part for me, is that while it's chock full of doctrine and tradecraft, absolutely the most cutting edge stuff that we can come up with, and lessons from, well, I got almost 30, you got a little over 20. So I guess we've got 50 years of collective intelligence experience, Derek, and all that comes with that, and all of our advisors in the process too. It's got some cutting edge stuff in there, but it's really a book about humans. It's about being a human, about human intelligence, about the notion of where humans are really inimitable by machines in this very machine learning, artificial intelligence driven world that we seem to have all of a sudden started living in the last couple of years. And I think if it gives anyone some hope for being able to see perspectives that they couldn't see before, that's really, the opportunity here. So everybody who's watching today, we'll look you up and send you a voucher to get a free signed copy of the book. With that, I've got another little announcement to make. In 2007, I had my first crop of summer interns, college interns. And last summer, I had my last crop of summer interns. So there's one of those examples of something that you do for a decade and a half, and you love every second of it, and you make young people go home from the office crying sometimes, but you won't fire them. They're going to have to quit. They're going to have to give up. That's actually was the only terms or conditions of an internship under me was I will not fire you. You're going to have to quit. And that tells me a lot about who you are when those circumstances come up. I've seen a lot of those young people go on to fantastically successful careers in intelligence and beyond. I remember one of my very first crop students is a pastry chef in Chicago now, actually, and quite happy with that. Thank you very much. No career in intelligence analysis for that person. But I will say that bringing that chapter of Aurora to a close was a little bit melancholy in the sense that, boy, what are we going to replace it with? And so without further ado, the thing we're replacing it with, let me see if I can find the screen now. Here we go. We are replacing Aurora's summer internship program with Aurora's summer scholarship competition, and directed at the same group of folks, undergraduates typically, maybe accept some graduate students into the program. But after we had such an awesome premiere of the two academies, we had the Dark Tech Academy last summer, and we had Applied Superiority for the first time, actually, alongside that. And then the integration of those two teams really surfaced a lot of ideas on how to make this a much more intense learning experience for the students, as well as an exploratory opportunity for Aurora, to really explore both what these young people are capable of, what their creativity can come up with, their ingenuity and their energy, frankly. They ran circles around me more than once. I think the level of insights that were produced there, in fact, if you want to take a look at this webpage on reconverge.io, our learning business, which is now emerging from the mothballs we put it into 4 years ago when lockdown hit from COVID. That learning opportunity is something that we want to continue to encourage. And so that's really the reason behind moving from internships to scholarships is we want to encourage those students not to work for the small amount of thank you payment they might receive as a part-time employee in a summer position like an internship. We want them to be excited about going back to school in the fall. And so that's why the payments that we'll be making will be made not to the students themselves, but directly to their educational institution for deferment and application to whatever tuition or other expenses those students might incur. And right now, of course, we have Reconverge partnerships with 3 universities, Mercyhurst and Gannon, both in Erie, Pennsylvania, and Concordia University of Wisconsin in Mequon, north of Milwaukee here in Wisconsin. And we're going to be expanding those relationships here in 2024. But if you know of an undergraduate or a graduate student, we'd consider the right graduate student for sure too, have them visit reconverge.io and take a look at our scholarship competition. And we'll have more details about this as the deadlines begin to emerge. Both applications will require a sample of the types of work that the student can do. In the case of the superiority analyst, it's going to be a written analytic artifact that they have to produce and submit along with their full application. In the case of the dark tech side of the fence, they're going to have to submit a code sample. And we have some specific instructions on what would be expected of the applicants in those two tracks. So Derek, I'll take a breath. How do you feel about moving from internships after 16 years worth of that, inertia into scholarships and then running it as a competition?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. We're still working through, any, other kind of, ancillary impact to that. For instance, how does it get taxed? Is there a tax, similar to an employee-employer relationship? That type of thing. So, we will get that figured out long before the scholarship summer begins. And at the same time, I think it will be attracting those young people who are in it for the right reasons. I'm not saying that a paycheck isn't important. I'm not saying that you don't need financial sustenance to live in today's world. But for those that see it as truly a learning and application opportunity, I think we're going to end up with young people who are even more deeply committed to, an exploration of what this field might do for them, both emotionally and long term. So, that's probably where I'm most excited about it. I mean, you didn't know at age 25 that the field known as competitive intelligence would be where Aurora WDC would necessarily hang its hat. You knew you wanted to start a consulting business. You hung it all on the line, age 25. Here you are, 54 and change. What you knew is that you didn't want to work for somebody else, and you needed to start this adventure in order to prove to yourself, kind of limit testing, one of those concepts, right, that we talk about in this book. You needed to prove to yourself that you could do it. And in a lot of cases, young people today, I see as the same way, myself included, even though I'm not so young anymore. Every day, you got to get up and prove to yourself that not only you can do it, but you can do it with enthusiasm, with a sense of rigor and excitement for what you're doing. And ultimately, that opportunity to engage, with people who are like-minded and who will push you in all the right ways, I think is where our scholarship recipients for the summer 2024 will probably find the most fulfillment.
Thank you, Derek. I appreciate those remarks. And, I think that's the thing that I'm trying to tap into with that move to scholarships and competition is, would they do it for free? Because when Aurora started, I did do it for free. In fact, that's a big part of most of the new things that Aurora does. Most of the new things that Aurora tries, we don't necessarily get paid for right out of the gate. It's stuff that is a hunch or a hypothesis or a theory, or, boy, I think somebody might want this. And, how do we turn that into evidence from the market by producing a customer? That's really what customers are, is proof that you have value and that you are offering something of value. And if you don't have customers, odds are very high that you're not producing much of value. So that's I think part of the key to Aurora's success is the willingness to fail, but the willingness to fail fast and cheap, and then fix it. So I believe that the internship program is a great example of something that was very successful. And we have a bunch of people who work at Aurora today who started life as an intern one summer long ago, perhaps for some of you, but for many of you who started out here at Aurora as an intern, we're really looking forward to your continued contributions and involvement in this new scholarship concept as we turn this into more of like a weekly lesson and a learning mission that each one of these students will have, and very tailored and customized to their own career plans, but then adapted to the things that Aurora needs to get validation and proof on from exposure of their products to the outside market. So that's the next piece of news was no more internships, guys. Thank you for 16 great summers of interns. It's a scholarship competition now. So I put the link in chat here over on the Zoom webinar. If you haven't jumped on the Zoom webinar bridge and you're currently watching on social, we're going to be cutting this off here in a little while for you social folks. So go visit reconverge.io and find the link for the Running Into the Fog podcast and sign up and jump on live with us. We will be opening up the second half, Derek. I don't know if you knew that, but second half is called Unspeakable. And that's when we invite our audience who's on the webinar bridge to join us on the panel here today. We don't have a guest. Really, Aurora is the guest in many ways that you and I are talking to today. Do you have any remarks in reaction to that, or can I go on to our next piece of update news?
I would just say, Jose put a question in the Q&A pane about, are we taking internships? Can cybersecurity students apply? And I think the answer is the scholarship candidate needs to reside at one of those three institutions. Is that correct? Not correct.
For the scholarship students, they do need to be part of one of our three institutions. That's Gannon University in Erie, Pennsylvania, Mercyhurst University in Erie, Pennsylvania, or Concordia University of Wisconsin in Mequon, Wisconsin. Concordia University of Ann Arbor is part of the same institution in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So if those four campuses If you have a student at one of those 4 campuses, please send them over to reconverge.io and fill out the application. Cybersecurity students would probably be pretty good at both of the 2 academies, actually, because I think with a cyber emphasis, you could probably dig into the AI work sample pretty completely. We're going to be using a system connected to ChatGPT called Playground as the way in which we assign a work task that will be completed by March 15th. Actually, that's our deadline. Incidentally, if you're wondering what the deadline for application is, it's Death to Tyrants Day, my favorite holiday of every year, March 15th, the Ides of March. Sic semper tyrannis, thus always unto tyrants, as they say. And
I thought it was because corporate taxes are due that day.
Well, I'll just not comment on anything related to tax policy or law. How about that? But sic semper tyrannis is all I'll say in reply to that notion. But yeah, I think the deadline, March 15th, they've got about a month basically to get that work sample together. More details on the link that I dropped into chat here, and you'll see it probably coming out from us on our social channels as well if you aren't watching this on social already. So yes, moving on to the next topic. Last week, we had a really important meeting with our Chief Technology Officer, Greg Irvin Derrick, and I'm not going to go into super deep detail here, but I do want to let people know what we're planning, what we've got sort of in our hopper here coming up for the rest of the year. We intend to publish to a very small circle of allies and clients our product roadmap. And that product roadmap will go into some detail about the future features, capabilities, and benefits of our First Light product platform. That product roadmap is a very, very closely guarded secret, obviously. So for those of you who are watching this on social or here on the bridge with us, feel free to request to be invited to that, but don't feel badly if we tell you no. This is really designed for the people who are depending on First Light and its various, offer iterations as it shows up in the market to power their intelligence program. It's really the backbone behind many of the top strategic market and competitive intelligence programs, at least here in North America these days. And so being transparent with our product roadmap with those customers is something that's kind of been on our list for a while. It hasn't been something that I think we've been super comfortable with doing necessarily. And this is the type of thing that allows us to both be a little bit, what's the right word? A little proud, I think, of where we're taking the product platform as we move now into our, we're starting the 20th year of First Light, Derek. Did you know that? First Light began life in 2005. That would make this its 20th year. We'll celebrate the end of the 20th year in 2025. So it's kind of a big deal. Any thoughts or, response to that idea?
Yeah, so we're in our 19th year now, and we'll finish 20 November, a year from this November. So just making sure we're square on that timing. I think because our software is not really considered off the shelf, and it is designed to then have a higher delivery value because there's a certain amount of customization that goes into it and all. Publishing a roadmap becomes one of those kind of double-edged swords, if you will. You end up, it's great to do that, but it comes, at the sometimes expense of helping our great customers develop custom environments that are very highly unique to them. So, from that standpoint, I'm getting distracted by Terry's need for JP to do some tweaks. Love that you put that in there, Terry. So, the fact is, it's time, that we get that roadmap into, like you said, that select group of great clients and partners and allies. But it's also one of those things that as an Intel firm, we know we have to protect and not have it get too widely spread.
Right on. So for those of you who have an interest in it, if you don't receive an invite from us, and by the way, if you're a current user or buyer or customer of the First Light business at Aurora WDC, you will be invited into those product roadmap discussions. We probably will make them quarterly beginning, and then eventually move to a little faster tempo there. So they'll probably start out as very private, kind of one-on-one. Our first light dev team with the client team who's working on it. That's how it'll begin. But I hope that at some point this leads us to eventually have a First Light user group community that allows non-competing users of First Light to have a little bit of pollination between how they're using it and how they might get more out of it. So Joe, thank you for that comment in chat there. Appreciate your faith and trust there, and look forward to getting you activated and part of it all. So that's, I think, maybe our fourth or fifth piece of news. Last big piece of news that is coming out of my corner, and then we'll jump to our private unspeakable little bit more private forum here on the Zoom webinar alone. So we're going to say goodbye to you social folks. You got about 4 minutes to get over to Reconverge.io and get signed up if you want to stay in this conversation. But my final piece of news is we're going to be visiting a few new venues this year. We've got some new places that we're going. Traditionally, you could see us most of the time at a Skip conference. Skip is in April, I think, in Nashville. And you might just see a couple of Johnson brothers turn up along with a few other folks from the Aurora world. If you do happen to go to Skip Nashville, let us know. We'll buy the first round of beers as we usually do. No more rock concert, unfortunately. It's been a few years since we've been able to throw a decent rock concert. The last decent rock concert actually was, as Derek put it, on Aurora's 25th, and my 50th. But we will be there, and would love to clink a glass with anyone else who's there. Luis, looks like we'll see you there. Going. Wonderful. We'll definitely get the first round for you, my man. But there are some other places that we're going. Derek, do you want to let us know where else we're going? Or you probably know a little better than I do, but I know of at least a couple other places that we'll be meeting the marketplace, and a couple places which are kind of new.
Yep. We've been writing about this in the book, everybody. And I would challenge you to think about this in terms of both your professional ambitions and your personal ambitions. Every one of us, if we aren't real active in it now, we probably should be more active in it. And that is, developing a risk and return profile that makes us comfortable with the projected outcomes as it relates to things like saving for retirement, or saving for our future, or saving for our kids' futures, right? And there's a variety of ways to do that. The same risk and return profiles, that you have to get comfortable with in that type of, or that part of your life, we argue in various parts of this book we're writing, The Missionary and the Mercenary, that the same holds true for your professional ambitions. You have to align your mindset, your risk tolerance, what your return expectations might be with that of the culture and the likelihood of the style of company that you invest your time in, whether it be for a short period of time or a long period of time. And through that process, it's sort of become apparent to us that risk management inside of organizations is an area that probably isn't giving enough attention to the role that competitive market and strategic intelligence, I usually use a different order to those, get what I mean, that the role of those three areas of intelligence can play for them. So we've made a decision to go and, for our first time, take an exhibit booth and a few people out to the Risk World conference in San Diego. I think it runs May 5 through 8. So I'm looking forward to going out there. We got a accepted workshop around, I think it's called Cooking the Black Swan, and it's all situated around wargaming, competitive simulation, scenario planning that our colleagues Tim Smith and John Westbrook will be doing out there. And then I just look forward to going into a brand new environment and trying to strike up conversations with people, like-minded individuals who are, trying to figure out how to make, isolate the choices they have in strategic market and competitive intelligence into using insights and intel to drive better decisions around those choices. So life is full of choices. We have to take the information that we have available and make decisions to act on the best information that we have at that time, right? Risk management is no different. So I'm super jacked about that opportunity to go to Risk World, see what a new venue like that is all about. And I think you might tag along, Eric. Is that right?
I'm planning on it. Yep. That's a pretty big meeting too. How many people are at that meeting? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think it's in the low thousands. So, we've been watching some of the, kind of numbers. This isn't unique to Skip or SLA or any of the others that we've typically gone to. I think it's just a trend in-person conferences post-COVID, right? But it seems like it's a pretty energetic environment there at Risk World, and certainly something that is sure to be a good exploration of where we might have some impact.
Right on. Well, we've got a few other meetings we're going to. Can you refresh my memory on what they might be, or have we not got those locked in yet?
Other than Skip and Risk World, my understanding is we don't have anything locked in yet, but maybe there's one or two that you know about.
Well, I think we're taking suggestions, actually, is the reason to bring it up to this austere and illustrious group, is that, if you have suggestions where intelligence can make a difference to the people of influence who are taking action on behalf of other stakeholders. That's really sort of how we're defining some of our go-to-market these days, and the value proposition of what it is Aurora WDC does. Risk management seems like a very, very viable place to make a market. And Derek, you mentioned the notion of having risk in a portfolio of investments. What's the first thing a financial advisor asks when you start talking about where to invest? What's the first personal question they're going to ask you?
Well, I think it's about feeling. And it will be along the lines of what's it going to make you feel when your portfolio is down 28% in a given year?
That's actually the same answer that I was thinking of, but answered in a different way. The first question is always, how old are you? Because if your portfolio is down 28%, do you have time to make that money back before you retire, right? Essentially? That, I think, is suggestive of what it is we find so curious about risk management as a marketplace, is not only the fact that it's growing at a 10% CAG for the next 8 years in North America and closer to 15% globally. Not sure competitive intelligence could say the same, but who am I? I'm just an economic actor trying to, turn a nickel into a dime every day. But I think that going where the market is growing is definitely one of our goals here as we move into year 30, and continuing this story for, I don't know, who says we can't do it for another 30? We'll be in our 80s at that point, Derek, but I know people in their 80s who are still doing this kind of work today. And if they can do it, surely we can pull that off. But yeah, we've got other places that we want to take this story, and what's the story of what strategic marketing competitive intelligence can really do from a value standpoint. And we'll take it to anyone who will listen, frankly, and try and make a market there. So if you have suggestions for that, shoot them over to us. Now, I have good news and bad news.
Now with knowledge management environments, we're talking about KM world. That isn't a hard thing yet, but I think some of those folks, the corporate librarians, I still believe, it's not only our opportunity, but I dare say responsibility to continue to help, those great professionals sort of lift their profile inside of the companies that they serve. So, we are all parts missionary and mercenary in how we think about where we take Aurora's story. So, from that angle, Derek, your point, anybody on the line that has suggestions for us, by all means, toss them in the thread or reach out to us privately.
Wonderful. And thank you all who've joined. If you have to leave, that's no problem. But we do, Derek, have a volunteer for Unspeakable. Before we bring Terry on, I want to just say goodbye to all of those of you watching on social. Head over to reconverge.io and get signed up and move over here. It's the last time I'm going to ask you. And if you don't do it, we'll see you next time on Running Into the Fog. But for now, we're going to say goodbye.